Hello, welcome to an exciting episode of Pete vs. Anxiety. My guest today is a licensed professional counselor, licensed marriage and family therapist, and a certified clinical mental health counselor. She earned a certificate in ministry from the Austin Presbyterian Theological Seminary. She's also a U.S. Army veteran and has worked in the mental health field for over 17 years. Please welcome in my guest, the one, the only, Healy Eichert. So,
Yay, the one, the only. Happy to be here, Pete.
so,
Thanks for having
so
me.
besides everything I just said, do you want to tell me a little more about yourself?
Sure, I'm a counselor in the northwest corner of Arkansas, and I have a private practice here called Hope Life Counseling. And I'm married and have now 4 grandchildren. So just
There you go.
I had the last one just last week. So
So I do
been
know
exciting
that I'm
over here.
looking at your information. You are the host of a podcast called Healing and Redeemed. Is that correct?
A healthy and redeemed.
If I could read today, it'd be great. I told you. See, I thought I was going to mess something up here. So listen, okay. My question for everybody that gets into the mental health field, is this something you've always wanted to do though?
No, not necessarily. I kind of had the epiphany maybe when I was in the Army, I was doing a master's degree program, through the University of Oklahoma, and the program was human relations. So you got a wide variety of classes, and one of the classes happened to be a counseling class, and I really, really enjoyed it. And, when I got out of the military and I was working and stuff, but I was like, "What do I really wanna do with my life?" And, just remembering how much I enjoyed that, and, one of the professors had encouraged me that I might be good at it, so I looked up how to get licensed and found out I had to go back to school, and so I did that, and yeah. So I didn't always wanna be in the mental health field, but I found that I could see steps along my journey that had kind of uh, was like, "Oh, that was an interest, I just didn't really, you know, kinda put
So
it together."
the army is this something you've always wanted to do? I'm kind of curious about that as well. So what job did you do in the military?
I was an administrative specialist,
Oh,
which
okay.
basically is like yeah, you just help units out on their administrative needs, which is, can sound boring, but I got to do because with that MOS, you get to really get assigned to any kind of unit. So, I also had an identifier Foxtrot 5, which is, postal clerk. So, my last duty station was in Fort Huachuca, Arizona, and I worked with the, military intelligence there running their mailroom. And so, that was complete I mean, I was trained in that, but I hadn't done that my whole Army career, so it was kind of neat to be able to do that, and, um, yeah. So, that was fun, but it's not like so I was assigned to an infantry unit, my first duty station when I went active duty, and then, worked for NATO, um, and with the communication security section, so I got to be assigned in kinda some cool places, just because of my MOS,
Yeah,
which
yeah.
sounds boring, but it wasn't.
So how long did it take you until when you were getting into this that you got into marriage and family therapy? Because those are all interesting areas that you're in. I mean, you're a counselor, marriage and and then you also have a clinical mental health counselor. You've got a lot of things that you've been working on here. Let me tell you. Did you
I
did you
love
get
to
into like
learn.
counseling first though, and then you decided like maybe I should expand a little bit more to cover some other other areas people run into?
Well, in the program here in Northwest Arkansas, there's a, Christian university called John Brown University, and
Hmm.
they have a dual program where you can do both degrees at the same
Oh,
time,
okay.
and so that's kind of why I did it. It wasn't that I was necessarily interested in, marriage and family. I mean, I didn't hardly know anything about the field anyway, so I really didn't have any idea, but I really enjoy it and can definitely see the dynamics within how, family definitely influences, other family members. So, yeah, so that's why this is my life. I'm not sure if I make intentional choices along the way, but sometimes I just also fall into those things. So it was the military also. I went in due to an encouragement of a friend, not necessarily that I had a big desire to, serve in that way. But that did come, and I was willing to lay down my life for my country, but I didn't necessarily go in with that kind of mindset.
Yeah. No, I know a lot of people get in though. They're looking at the GI Bill for college. I know my brother when he went in, he was doing medical, so he was a med tech technician. So my dad and I were discussing it. He was a little concerned because during the whole Iraq interaction, he was about to go in, and they were talking about where he could be, and he's like, "Listen, suit up. We're gonna have to go get you. We have to go rescue your brother out there." I'm like, "Dude, I'm not, Delta Force or whatever these movies you be watching with Chuck Norris or their pops. I don't know about you, but I'm I'm not trained to fire a gun. Or you're gonna go through some kind like my dad. Like a little background on my dad, real quick. He's kind of like John Wick. I feel like he sends you pictures of things that make you wonder. Like he showed us a picture of something that looks like something out of John Wick's house, and I'm like, what?
Dear.
You know what I mean? Like he's the international man of mystery. Like those Dos Equis commercials, they should be about him because like he doesn't talk much about his past. Okay, so
Yeah.
recently he had told my sister-in-law a story, and she's looking all at us, going, "Is this a real story?" And I'm like, yeah. Unfortunately, he's right. So he used to do something deep in the government. I'm really not going to say much more than that, but he just did. He had revealed something. It makes a lot of sense of things that I've seen through my whole life. My brother though he was in the military for a while. I know I've had family members, like I think the oldest one I can remember is the one that was driving Eisenhower's tank across the German line. And my dad said he used to tell stories about what it was like. He told him just keep punching it. And I was like, yeah, that sounds like what he would do, from the stories you hear, he and things like that too. So I'm interested though to know here though. So you got certified in ministry. Now was this something that it seems a little out of everything else that you did in your background? But then when I read a bit about your podcast, it makes a lot more sense. So is faith always been a big thing in your life? Is that how you grew up? Because I know for a
Mhm.
lot of people it isn't. Mine, it really wasn't at first, and then I accepted faith, and to me it feels like a whole different thing. Just as like a whole nother dynamic opened up in life. Like this podcast took off and things like that too. And things like that too, because I think the way faith is really given to people a lot of times, it's like from my early experiences was it's just force fed to you, and I think that's the wrong way to look at it. Is like you just can't keep just like pounding people, and expect them to believe what you're saying because they're gonna think, okay, well that's as soon as this person's a super crazy sounding person doesn't mean that's what faith is like.
Yeah, that's right. I think that, yeah, I grew up in I don't know, my parents weren't necessarily practicing Christians,
Hmm.
although they felt like faith was important, so they took, um, us to church, and I had, given my life to Jesus at a young age at a vacation Bible school, but then as struggles came up in my life, I kind of drifted away. I always had that faith, like I believe in God, but
Hmm.
it wasn't really practically I wasn't living it out. And, when I was in the military, I was in a Bible study, and I really felt God just speak to me and say, "Hey, Healy, you need to decide if you're gonna live this way or you're gonna live for me." And I'm like, "Where?" I mean, I was really confused, like, "What are you talking about? Of course I'm living for you. I mean, I'm here in this Bible study after all." But and then he just began to reveal some things to me where I had compromised a lot in my life and then just rededicated my life like, okay. Uh, and as I began to read the Bible, my life just transformed in like I began to just do and live life all through my Christian faith. So that changed from just having a belief to actually living it out. And I think sometimes, yeah, it can feel like we were force fed as children, but of course, parents are going to give us what they believe. Um, I mean, of- that's kind of what we do as parents. Like we just share with our kids like things that we believe, and it can be right or wrong, or it can be a little strict, or it can be a little off. But and as we go about adults, that we have to figure out things for ourselves of like what path are we going to walk, and anyway, so that's how I um began. Then just everything I did was through that lens. So counseling and my podcast and all the things. So
So I did have a question for you though. Since you've been in the military and you work in the mental health field, What do you feel like a lot of the problems a lot of military people deal with when they come back? Obviously, PTSD is one of them. Are there some other things that we should highlight for them? Because I do feel like enough people advocate for them. I know I've had guests on the show before. I had a guy that was in the military for 22 years. He's seen some kind of combat action, come back, and he said that when he came back over from overseas, was that his experience was that when he had really bad PTSD, TMI, things like that, you could tell something was wrong. His experience, now this is his experience, okay? So he said that when he came back, they told him that he was okay, and he was like, "No, I'm not. I'm not okay. Did you look at my test results before I left, or before I came, or after I came back?" And what he was told is that they looked at his prior ones, not his ones when he came back. Do you see that being a consistent problem at all? Have you heard anything like that?
I well,
I'm just curious.
I
No, I'm
mean,
just curious
that's
your
kind of
thoughts
all.
on it because I
Yeah,
kind of like maybe that was when he was in and he was coming back. I don't know. I'm just kind of like to me it blows my mind that that's how we these people have gone into combat situations and when they come back they're severely traumatized a lot of times because you see somebody's death or you unfortunately have to take somebody's life over there. It'll mess with you. You're like, if you're not ready for it, like the Chris Kyle thing, like the whole movie, like he was when you're watching that movie, seeing like, how it was and what he went through and the struggles he was dealing with and things like that too.
yeah, I don't know about that particular case, but I do know that there are some, just really hard transitions, whether you've seen combat or not, even harder if you have seen combat, but people experience a lot of things, like, the military is a little different than just, like, you're going to a job, it's, like, all-encompassing, it's everything, you have to ask permission to go out of town for the weekend, like, you come back and because the military is this whole thing, it's hard to figure out stuff like healthcare and, setting up utilities in a home or getting a home, like, all that is just new because you don't have someone either telling you what to do or you asking permission to do stuff, so that can be kind of hard. A lot of when you're in the military too, especially if you're in for many years, that is really your identity, and it's something that, really gives you purpose and fulfillment and all that, and then when you get out, it can be very messing with your mind of just, like, your identity is that's not there anymore, so who am I, and what purpose do I have now? So and then if you've experienced some trauma from war or from sexual assault or just things that
Yeah.
happen, um, then coming back, it can be, um, difficult to because depending on how people view mental health and getting help from a therapist, sometimes that's a hard thing to overcome because you might see someone even in the VA system that may not understand exactly all the stuff. That you went through or just terminology, or if you go see someone outside, often if I see vets, that's one of the things that they're looking for is someone that actually just understands what the military is like, even if it's a different branch. Yeah, so there are a lot of struggles and, like, some of those things you wouldn't even think, "Oh, I don't need counseling for that," but, like, the identity thing, you might not think you have to go to a counselor for that, but it's a hard struggle, and so things like anxiety and depression and stuff can, surface just through that. The trauma, sometimes people have a harder time because it's just hard to go see somebody, and then if that's not a really good fit, and the VA, I don't know if they allow you to check out different counselors within the VA system. We allow that outside there, but if they go through the VA, that may not be a possibility. If that person's not a good fit, you may feel like, counseling doesn't work." And often it is the therapist because that's who you have to build a relationship with,
Hmm.
and if they're not a good fit for you, doesn't mean they're a bad therapist, it's just sometimes we don't fit with people, and that's okay, and so you just have to go find somebody else, and so,
Yeah, I
um,
think that's a really good
veterans
point
will have
there.
to really advocate for themselves in that to go, "I need somebody else. This person's not
Yeah.
working," but
No, I
TRICARE does cover people outside the VA too, so people aren't stuck
okay.
if they feel like that's, well, typically, if they don't have TRICARE though, then that might be a different situation, but it depends on their healthcare,
No, I agree
what's
though with
going
what
on
you
there.
said though. It's not every therapist is a fit for people, and then people get discouraged. But I always tell people, anybody that's thinking about doing it, I'm like, listen, if it doesn't work out, don't stay with them. That's my first thing to anybody. It's like, don't stay. They're okay with it. They understand it. They understand that they may not be a fit for you. That's okay. Sometimes it'll take you a few to find somebody, and it's hard. It's not a fun process, just like any doctor you go to. It's the same thing. You don't like the doctor, you don't agree with the way he does things, you go find another one. It's the same exact model if you think about it, honestly. So, maybe
Except with counseling, y you are exposing the most inner parts of yourself that make you most anxious to expose. So it's even harder to get to a counseling appointment than, even a doctor's appointment because that's, physical, but, like, you're
mhm.
about to expose your thoughts, your feelings, all that stuff, like and that can be really hard for people and embarrassing, if you've done a lot of things wrong. So, I think it can be even harder, and I always you know, tell people like, "Great job getting in here," because that's the hardest thing. If you've gone, you probably know that, but I know for my clients, that's the hardest part, and then having to look for another person, then you're starting that all over again. It could be even harder because it's very like, who wants to reveal their inner self? Some people do, but some people, like, that's a lot, and you don't even have words for it all, so it can be a hard process.
So on that thought though, do you have advice for anybody that may be thinking about seeking counseling? You may some words of encouragement, just to ease their thought process, some things they may, what are some things you think that maybe a lot of people have misconceptions about?
Well, I always say it's the strong people that go to counseling, like, because it takes a lot of strength to get there. It takes a lot of strength to acknowledge that I could use some help. It doesn't mean you're weak at all. I think sometimes it's those that are, um, well, it takes a lot of strength to get there. So know that and to decide that that would be helpful. So take that as a sign of strength, not a sign of weakness. I believe that totally, and I see it all the time. The other thing I would say, if you're searching or just want to sort of check it out, is just search the internet for therapists in your areas. And then, because normally you'll find them like on Psychology Today or something like that, or go to their website and read a little bit about them. This will weed out a lot of people that aren't going to be a good fit because you can just read the paragraph about the person that they write. Like, I've got a little profile on Psychology Today. You're going to know pretty quickly if I'm going to be a good fit for you or not. So that will help and help you feel like on my website, I have a little bit about myself so that they know if I'm going to be a good fit, or it'll help them maybe ask questions when they're there. And I encourage you to ask questions of your therapist if you have, like, are you married? Whatever it is. So you kind of know. Because I think when you know somebody a little bit before you go in, it helps like what they look like, what they believe, how they approach
Yeah. It's
therapy,
like a comfort
some
thing.
about their personal life. Yeah, it just helps you to feel a little bit better about that. And if you have like a Christian or a different faith background, um, you can either find somebody with that or ask them to integrate that into your counseling. So it's your counseling, so you can kind of set the goals, the agenda, all that stuff, and the therapist will help you to, work through that, like, is that a good goal or is that not feasible, you know? So, anyway, so just remembering you're kind of the one in control, so you can kinda go in a little bit more confident, like, "Okay, they're not interviewing me, I'm interviewing them."
So let's dive into my favorite thing. Let's talk about your podcast. How did you start it? What was your first initial thoughts when you even thought about it? Because podcasting, I mean, is a lot. It's tough for a lot of people to understand. There's a lot of work goes into this thing, and you could tell people too the same thing. It's a lot of work when it goes in this thing. It's not a just okay, let's click and go kind of thing, like a lot of people make it seem.
Yeah. Yeah, and I do a solo podcast, so it's, like, all information, and so it is a lot of work. Oh my gosh, I didn't know, and good thing I didn't, because I probably talked myself out of it. But I don't know, I kind of my undergraduate degree was in broadcast journalism, so I kind of always wanted to be on the radio or on TV or something like that, and, life just I tried to do it in the military, but since I had already had an MOS, it was kinda hard to switch over, so but, anyway, and as podcasting kind of happened and I heard about it, I was like, "Oh, I wouldn't mind doing that." Like, I think that would be helpful. And just as a lot of, people will ask me counseling questions on the side and, like, if they're struggling with anxiety or depressive symptoms or something, and so, um, I'll give them some advice. And I'd created a workbook for people to work through anxiety and worry. And so the podcast almost seemed like the next logical step in that. Like, how can I help more people? I mean, because I can help more people than come into my counseling office. For those that are afraid to come into counseling, that would be another way to get to know me. Probably too much though. But, if you want to have help with anxiety, I've got a podcast on that. If you want help on how to renew your thinking, I've got a podcast on that. I'm working on I've got a series on coping skills for Christian. Well, it's a Christian based podcast, but it's Christian mental health. And so I'm working on a um, 3-part
So
series right now on suicide. So
do you want to
that's
kind
kind
of
of
elaborate
heavy.
a little bit on what the difference between Christian mental health is and the regular one is? Is there some differences in there? I'm just curious, really, honestly.
Yeah, it's just integrating your faith.
Okay.
So, Christians experience anxiety too. They may carry a little bit more shame about that because, we'll go back to those scriptures that say, do not be afraid. And so they may carry some shame about that. So, like things like that, I will talk about like what those kind of things look like from a Christian perspective. Coping skills are they're similar, but we would integrate faith into that, or we would integrate scripture into those things. So if we do meditation, it would be meditation on scripture. If we do, um, I'm trying to think, visualization, it would have a faith
Okay. Okay.
component to that, or scripture component. So yeah, it's just integrating our faith because that's how we see the world. So it's hard for Christians just to um and not saying that anything in the,
You're not.
um,
You're just
non-mental health like, the mental health help is bad because that's all true. We just integrate the faith
yeah. You
aspect
just you
into it.
just
So f
appeal to a certain audience with that, and I mean it made sense. It does because that's when it comes down to what that's what your niche is. You're covering that area, and it makes perfect sense to me. I mean anybody that thinks otherwise, okay, well you know what, they just don't get it. That's all it is to me.
well, they won't listen to my podcast
Exactly. Like just don't listen.
because
That's the great
it's
thing about podcasters. Got
yeah.
so many out there. You can go click play on something else, and if it's not for you, go. But
Yeah.
it takes a lot of planning, I would think. Yeah.
Yes. Almost a little bit too much because some days I'm like, "Oh my gosh, this is so much," and then I'll release it, and then I think, "Oh, I should have added that, I should have added that," but, I try to keep them under an hour, which you'd think would be easy since it's solo, but I talk a lot, so
No, that makes sense. So,
but
because
that's
when I
yeah.
started to, I had a podcast prior to this one I did. It was me and a couple friends, and we talk about some random things possible. And the strangest thing is people listen. Like I would tell stories about the wildest experiences I've had, and these people were listening. And a lot of people I worked with were listening too because they were curious about some of the things. I tell them stories, and they're like, Oh man, I'm like, I can't tell you the whole story here, but I gotta like, I'll do. I said, they said, I was like, you know what, I want to do a podcast. Like, I've always wanted to do one. A friend of mine mentioned it to me. Originally, I started doing it. I recorded it from my phone, and then it turned into a solo mission, and then it was season two. I added somebody else in, and then it turned into a little. It got a little out of hand because they were like, they didn't understand that there were limitations, things we could talk about. You know, my wife did not like certain topics that came up, and we ran into a speed bump like the 3rd episode in because it got a little too graphic, and, and I had to let her know, "Hey, listen, we gotta tone it down a bit," my wife is not too happy about it, and, I'm not trying to have a rough household here over a comment, something that we're doing, like, we need to stay with it, and then it turned into they had their extreme political views came in season 3 because we had another person that joined us, and we had a three-way conversation, and then when I got to men's mental health, it was an interesting one because I was like I did some research on it. I was looking into it, and I'm looking at the statistics, and I'm just like, "This is insane." Like, the suicide rates alone is the one that scared me a moment because I'm in the group of second most likely to do so, and I'm just like, it scared the hell out of me because I'm like, dude, why are we not talking about this enough? This is crazy. Why am I only finding this when I go to research it? So I decided to, break away from them and do my own thing because I was like, this isn't working. They aren't as invested as I am. So I'm going to do my own thing at this point. So that's when this show came about. So when this show came about, I was having my own struggles already. I've struggled with my own mental health for a while, like the anxiety, depression, all that stuff. I kept denying I had a problem for a while until there was that one defining moment where I got upset, and it was just like I don't even remember what it was upset about. So I started doing some therapy, and I was still playing around the idea for a month about like, thinking about I still want a podcast. I really like doing that, enjoyed it. What topic could I get into? And I was thinking, you know what? The men's mental health thing kept sticking with me. So I was like, you know what? Maybe I should explore this opportunity, except for open it to everything. Let's see what's out there that I don't know. And me being not trained in any way possible, just one curious soul on the way. I accepted faith a month before that too. And it's just something kept calling to me to just do this. And then all of a sudden, one day it hit me Pete versus anxiety. It just fell on me. And I was like, and I was looking at this photo. My original logo is me doing some goofy pose I sent to my wife. She sent it back with one of those like neon stylings. It almost looks like one of those like scratch paper things, like the little neon colors that come behind it. So for whatever reason, it just spoke to me. It was like, this voice kept telling me, just you should go for it, man. And when I did that, I went to Facebook and I was like, you know what? I'm gonna go in there and put some stuff out, see, test the water, see what happens. Okay. So I was in this Facebook group, and holy crap, when I tell you I had 150 responses within 2 hours, I thought my phone was gonna explode. Like, people are just hitting. I was like, oh, hold on, wait a minute. This is interesting. What's going on here? There's something here. So then I went and searched the space because I was just curious, what other mental health podcasts are out there. So I'm looking at some of them, and a lot of them are doctor this, doctor that. I'm like, okay, well, with all due respect to the doctors, where are the regular people just having a conversation about this? Like, doctors are great to have. They have all the advice, but what are just the average person's thoughts on this? So I expanded its search and started looking and found there's really nothing in this topic and space of that. But it's like, all right, what the hell? Let's go for it. Why not? We got enough noise. People want this. So I started booking people. So midway through the first month, I was already out to the end of the year. And this is just strictly Mondays. I got invited to be a part of a podcasting network at the time. I really didn't have much, but the early conversations I had were just great. I had a 2-time international bestseller, did shadow work. I even had a Columbine shooting survivor that came on. And that's the one that really scared the hell out of me in that episode because I didn't realize what we were about to get into. So all I knew is that she was a survivor. I didn't really look her up, didn't do my do's and search, and I should have to know what I was getting. But this conversation turned interesting about 10 minutes in. She goes, okay, so I'm in the library. I'm like, oh God. I'm like, you mean the library at Columbine? Oh yeah, I'm in the Columbine library. One of the shooters are standing right there. And what I can only presume, he's about good 6 feet away. She could see the whites of this guy's eyes. Okay. She said, he's looking at me. I'm looking at him. And I'm like, I'm sweating bullets over here because this is audio at the time. I'm in a dark room because my internet wasn't working where I was, so I had to hurry up and adjust where I was. So I ended up in this dark room, and you're like, when you're in the dark place, the only thing you're focusing on is what this person is saying. So she's telling the story, and I'm like, holy crap, this is crazy. Is this what these conversations are going to be like? I got even more excited because I was just like, I wonder what other conversations are out there. And then ever since then, every time I hit record, I am not surprised, except for the person at the beginning of the year. He scared the hell out of me. It's the first of the year, okay? I ran into suicide ideation for the first time in a conversation with somebody on the show. We were live. This gentleman comes on, and I could tell something was a little weird about him. He was kind of like he gave a vibe like something's bothering him. Okay. Then we get into the conversation. Then he starts getting the conversation. He lost his friend, unfortunately, suicide a few months earlier. I was like, oh no. I was like, I'm so sorry, man. And then he's like, Pete, can I tell you something? And I'm like, sure, man. What's up? Talk to me. This man, I scared the hell out of everybody, including me, because he started talking about, oh, listen, this morning I had the gun in my hand. He is literally telling us that morning he is thinking about taking his own life before we hit record. And I was like, oh my God, but you're here right now is what matters. As I'm thinking, as he's talking to me. And, it was a shock value of like the things that I'm going to get into in this space. Like I need to be prepared. So I did my research after that conversation, and was asking questions. And in the fact that he was talking about it was better than him actually doing it. And I checked in back with him and everything, and he's doing great now. But it's like ever since he came to that point, he was talking about it, and you could see he seemed like he got a little more relaxed as he started just letting it go. And I was like, okay, well, good. And I'm thinking like I didn't know what to do in this situation. And I tell you what, after that episode, there were so many people reach out to me and go, is he okay? I'm like, yeah, he's okay. I said, yeah, yeah, he's okay. I'm like, but it was so interesting to see people react in this way because it's like suicide isn't talked about enough. A lot of people, it's like the taboo question. It's like, some people talking about what happens behind closed doors in their bedroom kind of thing. Some people open that conversation, some people aren't. Respectfully, I get it. People talk about these things, and especially with suicide, it's very interesting because people afterwards tend to ostracize people after they find out they've attempted because the thoughts come out, oh, they're crazy, this and that, all these things that come out that coming out unfortunately with it is just pathetic, honestly. And then if somebody does commit it, then the next question to come out is like, what were they thinking? So then I dug deeper because I was like, you know what? I want to know. I'm curious. So I started asking questions, about it because I was like, I got to know more about this stuff, and as it kept going, new things kept popping up, like BPD and all these other things. I started looking more into these kind of things, and I'm just like more enthralled I got because I was like, hell yeah. Then I started meeting more interesting stories as I go, as the podcast continued to go. And, it just kept ramping up. And, March, I think alone, it did like 34 interviews. I did a staggering amount of interviews, but it was so interesting because every time I hit record, it was a new conversation, a new topic, and new things to talk about. And I just couldn't get enough of it. It was so great. So, that's where I'm here now. Now to where I'm now, it's like, I look forward to every conversation, look forward to meeting every new person because I'm always interested in their stories of what they're doing. So I love the fact that you're introducing faith because like I said, faith to me originally, it was just kind of force fed to me. Now that I better understand it, I explain it to people the same way. I'm like, just go read the Bible, start reading a little bit, see if it reacts to you. Don't let faith discourage you just because somebody else is super into their faith. That's awesome. Okay. More power to you. If that's not for you, you don't have to do the same way, and things like that too. So I love it when people integrate it though in the way that you're doing it too. It's just you're just kind of adapting it to, all right, these principles we're adding in as we go, and it kind of eases people into it. So they're not so like scared off about it, like things like that too. So I really do appreciate the fact that you're what you're doing is it's the way you're doing it. It sounds like you're doing it the right way. You're not making people feel like uncomfortable about it. It's like, listen, if this is your thing, come check it out. If not, come take a sample, see what you think, see if it reacts with you, see if something talks to you. You know what I mean? And I know people think it's weird when they say God talks to you. He does talk to you. I mean, you're just not listening. If you're, maybe that's that little inkling voice, a little notion you have. He's saying something to you. And I think everybody has a path for a reason, everybody crosses paths for reasons too. We all are intersected in everybody's life for some reason. No matter how the principle you look at it, energy, you attract people, you do, basically expel the people you don't want around you, and for some reason, he puts everybody in your path for a reason. Like I interact with people on a daily basis. There's a guy, in fact, the other day I met, he said he had schizophrenia. He just mentioned it. And I was like, oh, hold on, wait a minute. I said, listen, can I ask you an honest question? I said, and I ask you this because I run a mental health podcast. I'm always curious when I meet people that have different conditions. So if you don't want to answer it, it's okay. So I said, can I ask you, do you hallucinate? Just because I was curious. And he's like, yeah, yeah, I do a little bit. He was explaining it to me, his version of what it's like. And it was so cool because it's like people tend to start to come into me and tell me weird things, like just random facts. Like a guy the other day told me he lost his son to suicide. We were talking about that whole situation, but I felt like better equipped to have this conversation because I'm like, listen, do me a favor, just don't blame yourself, whatever you do about it. What his decision was is his decision. He said, you know what the scary part is? That's what his note said when he found it. I was like, oh my God, I'm so sorry that you had to read that note. But I mean, understand that his thought process has nothing to do with you. He obviously was battling some demon of some sort. I know he said his son had lost his girlfriend ran off with a friend, and that could have been the trigger point for him. For all we know, we don't know. And things like that too. So it's great because when I meet people like yourself and other people, I get to learn new things and new tools. I am definitely going to check out your show because I like what you're doing. I think it's very interesting. I'm going to suggest it to a friend of mine too, a younger guy I know. I always like to show him new things. Like, hey man, check this out. This may be something in your area because I feel like younger kids need to start talking about their mental health sooner than later. Because I think that more that we educate the younger gentlemen and the younger ladies about these things, the sooner we can get in front of a lot of these things that they deal with, and that way they don't have to suffer so much.
The research shows that younger people, like, um, younger than 30, they are more in touch with their mental health and their emotions than the other generations that, they are, you know,
Oh, that's good though. I'm glad the
more
research is
yeah,
showing because I'm pushing for
yeah,
that too, to
yeah.
start talking to the younger groups of them just to get them more understanding of what it is they may be feeling. Or regulate their emotions too is another good one too.
Yeah. I one of the things that I try to teach my clients is, it's good and fine to know your emotions and
Mhm.
be able to express them openly. The one thing that I want to help teach people is let's manage them so that just with every good gift that God gives us, we are to manage it well. So we don't let our emotions make decisions for us or guide us or, encourage us to do things that aren't helpful. Because just think if we listen to depressed feelings, the decisions we would make.
Mhm.
Or if we listen to fear-based emotions, what decisions would we make? Those aren't good for our health. Good decisions for our health is sometimes opposite of those feelings. So when we feel depressed and we wanna isolate, the better thing to do for us, research says, is to go hang out with somebody, not to be by ourselves. Or we go do something we enjoy, go for a walk or do whatever it is that, um, helps us feel better, and I talk about a lot of those different things that can help us, and they're very simple, but that's the big thing. We don't let emotions guide our decisions. We, in our logical mind, make decisions that we know are good for our health.
Yeah, I know as a person that suffers with depression, it's some days it's a battle to get out of bed. I mean, like
Yeah.
like there's days before I record this show, there's sometimes I'm just living in it. I call it the black hole, basically. It's like black hole size of depression. I'll get up and I'll do this because this is my one thing I enjoy doing. Like I'll take the dogs out for a walk, things like that. I'll get up and do something. It's a winning the battle. Even the littlest
Mhm.
battles like that too. And
Yep.
like I said, I get up and do this because I enjoy doing this. I'm always, like I said, I'm very interested. I'm so curious. I love hitting record with people because the conversations you can have with people, the different ideologies you get from other people, you never know something they may be into their area may be something you're into, which is kind of cool. Then I can tell other people about it because people always ask me all the time, like, "Who did you interview today?" There's a young guy, in fact, that's what he does all the time. So did you talk to today? Because he's always fascinated to know who I've been talking to. I'm like,
Yeah.
well, listen, man, I got some interesting stories. I said, like I did astrology. I'm looking at human design is another one coming up soon too because I'm curious about that. I'm exploring all different avenues. Like we did a birth chart reading on the show my own. We were talking about the different things in the houses that they applied to and all that kind of stuff. So I leave the conversation open to anything at this point. I love it. It's great. I think that, if you're not willing to learn something new, I don't know. You know what I mean? To me, it's like you should learn something new every day if you can. Like every the people that you meet, take away something from the conversation, or go check out something they're doing, like your podcast for sure. Like I'll be talking to people about it. Like, hey, listen, have you checked this out? Maybe it's something better for them, like if they need that little push, maybe you'll be that little push for them to go get some help. and things like that too. Because everybody knows me as the mental health guy now. Now I get everybody comes up to me and says, "Oh, I appreciate what you're doing." All I'm doing is having a conversation. To me, it just feels like I'm just having a conversation. Like I appreciate people coming up to me, but I feel better equipped meeting people such as yourself and other people that do different things in different areas. That in case I run into a situation, I could always go back and say, "Listen," I could reach out to him, ask him, or ask you, "Hey, listen, I had a question for you. Do you know anybody that falls in this category? If it's in your area, kind of thing." That way, and it's better. That way, people can't say I can't get help. There's plenty of help out there. What do you need? What are you looking for? Maybe I know somebody, may I have somebody I connected with that, I could introduce you to that could better suit you, and things like that. So I don't just use it for my own self. I use it for other people too. I'm like, I've reached out to a couple previous guests. Actually, in fact, one young lady, she had a situation come up with her daughter that I had to reach out and ask her. I said, listen, do you know somebody that's in this area? And she's in the same state we are, Texas, because I know some people are not licensed to practice in Texas. So I was like, hey, listen, do you know somebody in Texas that handles this situation, laid it out for her, and she was like, "Yeah, yeah, I got you." So it's so great. So changing topics, we're gonna get to the questions I ask everybody on this show. Okay, so this one's kind of a fun one. So the question actually is credit to a friend of mine. She has a podcast called "The Shit That Goes On in Our Heads." Yeah, I know it's great. I love that name. I was like, damn, I wish I would have thought of that one sooner. She
There are some
on the
good
show,
podcast names out there.
right? She come on the show and I met her. She's a real great woman. Her name's Gretchen. Okay, so Gretchen asked me a question I'm about to ask you. Okay, so the question is, if your mental health had a song, what would that song be?
Um, I would say the old hymn, "It Is Well With My Soul," and basically because I kind of do emotions and, mental health in different places in that I can feel sad or anxious or worried or fearful or whatever, but ultimately, my faith in Jesus makes me feel well, and I feel at peace, and that's where I always settle back to. I can have whatever emotion I want, but overall, I'm always gonna settle back with Jesus, and that gives me peace, so, yes, it is always well with my soul.
Love it. I absolutely love it. Okay, so the next question, and the reason this podcast exists is that if you could break this stigma about mental health, now when I say that, I mean anything that you just see, something you see on TV, something you see or somebody say, something you may even come across on the internet. What would you say that would be?
Probably that we are not our mental health. We are individuals and we have an identity that is separate than how we feel. So, I hear sometimes people say, I'm anxious, I'm depressed, and I would challenge people to instead just change that wording from I am, which encompasses the thing that we are, to I feel anxious, I feel depressed. So I don't as especially as the young generation becomes more, vocal about emotions and mental health and being aware of that, to just make sure that any diagnosis or any mental health status is not who we are. We are ourselves, and I believe are meant to have peace and joy with all the hard emotions too, but ultimately settling back in that place of who we are, who God's created us to be.
Absolutely love it. Absolutely love it. Thank you so much, Haley, for coming today. I appreciate hanging out with me. Um, do you want to go ahead and plug where everybody can find you? Obviously, your podcast, is there a website you'd like people to check you out, or socials, anything you like? Go ahead and let them know where they can find you at.
Well, I have a ton of resources, free mental health resources on my website, and that is writtenbyhealy.com. My podcast is on there. If you want to know about anything Christian based, that is on there as well. If you want to know more about me, that's on there. More than you even want is on that website. And then my podcast is Healthy and Redeemed, and I've got a Facebook group and one called Healthy and Redeemed, a private group, and then, my handle on Instagram and Facebook is Written by Healy. So that's where to find me. And if you have a something that you need that like I don't have on my website, because I'm always looking to create new resources for people so that they can just get information easily, anything from forgiveness to how to handle a hard diagnosis well, a hard physical diagnosis well. So I have all sorts of stuff on there. So if anybody needs something, reach out and I will get it on there
I love it. Listen, and we'll
within
get the link
reason.
to her Facebook group for you, well, in case anybody's interested in joining that as well. I started my own society. I have a You Matter society that I started on that thing school you always see all the time, everybody advertise about. So that's the idea. It's basically take the social out of social media. It's like take all the negativity, all the politics, and where we could just talk about mental health. So I'll definitely be adding your website as a definitely place for some people to check out. If you have checked out the helphub.co, by the way, that's another good one too. That Lisa Sugarman put up because they have this amazing site, puts everything together. It covers pretty much everything possible you could think of. I don't know, maybe check it out, see if there's anything that you could steal from there that'll work for you as well. Add it to your website. I'm sure she'd love that too. That's the whole reason it's there. Everybody help everybody basically. And with that being said, I want to thank you so much for coming today. It was so great having you. I
Thanks for
love
having
it.
me.
I love what you're doing. Keep doing it.
Thanks.
Just keep going. Like I said, I will definitely be sharing you out with everybody else I know about your podcast. There's a couple people I'm already thinking of that definitely I think I want them to check it out and see what they think. So, like I said, I appreciate you coming today and spending some time with me.
All right. Well, thanks for having me. And I just wanted to say, even though this is a podcast for you, I think you're providing a valuable service for people too in showing how important it is to just be present and to hear people's stories. That's why therapy is helpful for people because people have a safe place to tell their story without any,
Hmm.
like, that's terrible. Just to listen to. And that's why I think it was helpful for the guy that was struggling that morning, that there
Yeah,
was somebody there that listened to him. And we can all learn from that is how to just be present for people.
I love
That's
it.
powerful.
I love it. Absolutely. And with that being said, we're going to wrap up this episode of Pete vs. Anxiety. Guys, you know where to find me on Pete vs. Anxiety. I'm on X all the way down to TikTok. I'm on Spotify all the way down to Pandora Radio now. And as I always say, it costs nothing absolutely to be kind to somebody. One kind act you can do can save someone's life, or hell, you can make their day. I'm Pete vs. Anxiety signing off saying, don't ask how your day is today. Say, hey, how's your mental health today?